Hello.
How you doing, Eric?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Excellent.
Cool. What time of day is it over there for you?
It's 4 o'clock
Oh,
p.m.
beautiful. Nice, nice. That's bright and
Yep.
early. Yeah,
How about you?
7 o'clock in the morning here, bright and early, but
Oh,
that's all right. It's good to chat.
excellent, man.
Yeah,
Cool.
cool. Awesome. Um, so obviously Autopsy have a new album out, but if it's cool, I wouldn't mind talking some older stuff just a little before we get into the new album. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. So I guess, back in the 1980s, how'd you all get together? How did Autopsy first kick off?
Well, I met Chris through Steve DiGiorgio, and Chris and Chuck. Chuck was here at the time, and they just done Scream Bloody Gore, and they were living in these apartments behind my house.
Hmm.
So, and we used to have this little hole in the cyclone fence that kind of separated the properties, and we just go through right there. But Steve brought Chris over one day, and Chuck. We hung out a bit and getting stoned, and talking about stuff. And I was listening to Scream Bloody Gore. Of course, it was brand new, and sounded killer. And Chuck was thinking about staying here at the time, and we had some talks about if he was going to stay here, maybe I would play with him too, and just check it out and see where it goes. And he left, pretty quick after that. It was probably a couple weeks. He was gone, and he moved back to Florida. Chris had been out to Florida a little bit already with Chuck. Went out there, and Chuck asked Chris if he wanted to come back there and continue death back in Florida. And Chris is from California, and he didn't really want to go. And by the point of them talking about stuff like that, me and Chris already had started jamming. So right after Chuck left, me and Chris started getting together, just guitar and drums. And so Chris didn't really want to go back there. He wanted to stay here. And we started Autopsy. At that point, we started writing songs. Didn't have a title for the band yet, a name. But we decided we wanted to do something, make it sick, and see where it takes us. And that's kind of how it started in the beginning.
Yeah, awesome. Talking about the early days as well, I mean, you guys have that, the Death Doom sound. What do you think sort of influenced that? I mean, you talked about getting stoned. Do you reckon that might have helped? That sort of like slowed down riff kind of thing, maybe?
Well, it definitely didn't hurt. I'll say that. But
Yeah.
but we all grew up listening to the same stuff. Heavy music. Like Black Sabbath.
Mm.
You know, um, we were listening to as we were in the early days, we were listening to Pentagram, and and Witchfinder General, and different bands that had heavy kind of riffing a bit. And you can even listen to, we were listening to all kinds of classic rock too, and you can listen to, you can hear riffs in like the Who sometimes that have a heavy, like groove to it. So those type of things kind of just bled into us, and kind of influenced us a bit. And we of course punk was out. You were starting, Motorhead, so we were kind of wanting to do something kind of raw and heavy, and play something that was fun to play, but something that we would like to listen to, but we're not hearing that.
Mm.
And that's kind of what took off for us, kind of influenced us to do what we did early on.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What do you remember about like early gigs, playing early shows and that sort of thing?
Well, early shows in the Bay Area here, they sucked. They were really fun. We got to go play in a venue, and our friends were there, and maybe someone's dog in the corner. Hopefully they charge the dog
Yeah.
admission, but it was not very many people, but it was still always fun to go out and do it, and it was always an honor to go out to a show with nobody in it and have a pit of 10 people, and you're in the pit of 10 people, running around with your hands flying, and fuck it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great, like people showing up to the gigs and stuff. It was all new back then, for death metal, and everybody around here didn't really like it. Thrash metal was getting really huge, and that was kind of the scene here.
Yeah.
So it didn't, stop us from doing what we do, and the shows got better. They eventually, people started getting into it more and more. And, we were playing local shows that were, pretty decent, but nothing like it is now, where it's, a packed place, and you got, teenagers and, senior citizens, and, and all kinds of women and girls at the shows now that never used to go to the shows, so it's a whole different thing now than what it was back then when we started.
Yeah, that's cool. And if we jump forward a little bit from the start, so 1991, your brother's in the band for a little while. How was that playing with your brother?
It was killer. I love doing that because my brother's a guitar player. He's a few years older than me, and he's like a Stevie Ray Vaughan influence, person. And so for him to play bass, it was like a new thing for him, but we needed a bass player. And me and him, we were living together at the time, and he was like, shit, I can play bass, and he liked Autopsy, even though he wasn't really into death metal, kind of slightly tipped into metal a bit on some stuff, but he wasn't really into heavy stuff like, sick, death metal type shit. But he's like, I can do this. So, he got a bass and amp and started playing it, started showing stuff. And yeah, he picked up really good on it. He went on one European tour with us, and he did great on the tour. He learned all the songs, and playing perfectly, didn't make mistakes. He knew his limitations. He didn't try to play too fast on stuff, but he kept a good timing with the kick drum and snare on all the fast stuff where he was playing probably halftime with guitar, and it kind of locked it in a bit. So he knows music, enough to where he can pick up another instrument like the bass, and he kind of knew what to do. We didn't have to tell him what to do. He just kind of knew what it was about. And in writing some of Mental Funeral, me and him, used to sit around our place and mess around some stuff. And, he kind of helped me write Dead and Hole in the Head.
Oh.
So, yeah, so it was kind of, cool having him around to, play stuff and kick ideas off of too. And, so it was really great having him in the band. It's unfortunate, it didn't last as long as it did. He moved back to South Carolina where, that's where he likes to live. And so it didn't work out, but for the long run, but it was great while he was there.
Yeah, cool. And then 95, Shit Fun comes out. I was like 16, 17. That was my first introduction to you guys.
All right. There we go.
Yeah. I've got to ask, that cover, like, how did that come about? That's pretty iconic cover. Yeah.
It was all kind of a joke,
Yeah, of course.
It was, the band was breaking up. It was our last, record we're going to do. We did a US tour right before that. And and I managed the tour and, while playing every night, and it killed me. It was like brutal just dealing with all the club managers and owners and having to do everything, and then have to, play the show every night too, collect the money and do everything. And halfway through the tour, I was so burned out. I was like, yeah, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. And so when we got back, we still had the album to do, and, it was a lot of fun, we had a blast doing it. And, when it came time to the cover, we didn't have a whole lot of ideas, and it started out as kind of a joke, and we were just like, yeah, fuck it. It's, what is anybody going to do? Who cares if anybody likes it or they don't, it's fuck it. But that's kind of how that was.
Yeah. Cool. So then, 2008, 2009, Autopsy sort of comes back together. What prompted, the first sparks of that idea of you guys, getting back together?
Well, we had that anniversary edition of Severed coming out, and Peaceville had reached out to us and said they wanted to release a special edition of it. And we were all cool and on board with it. And we've always been friends. We didn't part the band, as enemies or hating each other or anything. We've always been brothers, So when that happened, we kind of kicked around the idea of recording something new for it, like a couple of songs, So we did that, and it was a lot of fun. We're like, yeah, this is really cool, So, but we didn't have any plan of actually putting the band back together at that point. We just kind of did it for that, just to see where it goes. And it's we didn't really start considering it until 2010, probably 2009, when Ryan and Evan from Maryland Death Fest reached out to us to ask us if we wanted to play Maryland, Death Fest, or if we would play that, reunite and play it. And we turned it down at first, and we negotiated a little bit and talked back and forth a little bit, and we got to the point where we said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And, so we agreed to do it, and then we started rehearsing for it. And, there was a point, during the rehearsals, not very far into it, where we're going through stuff and we stop and we just look around the room, we kind of laugh, and we're like, wow, this is really fun again. And that's what it's really about. Are you having fun or not?
Hmm.
If you're not having any fun, then it's why do it? Especially in death metal. It's not like you're ZZ Top or something. If you don't like each other, you don't have to be around each other all the time, for anything. But so it was really fun. So we're like, man, this is really cool. So Dan Lilker did the shows for us on bass, and we had a blast doing it. And at that point, we decided, we're like, what, let's do it. Let's come back and let's start writing some new stuff, and let's have some fun with this. It's really killer, and people are enjoying it. The responses on those 3 shows in 2010 was, mind blowing for us. We were looking out in the crowd and there's people crying and stuff. And we were like, oh shit, this is kind of bigger than we thought it was, it's really neat. And we haven't stopped since. So no plans to. So
it's great, man. So yeah, I guess the new album, Morbidity Triumphant, it's a killer album, man. What was the writing process like? Are any of these lockdown songs or anything like that?
No, it's our process always is everybody writes stuff on their own at home, and we email or text the songs to each other. Hey, got a new song, send it over. Everybody checks it out, and of course we're really hard critics on ourselves, and if we think something's not good, we won't even send it. But we'll send it out. Hey, what do you really think of this? Don't tell me you like it. Is it good? Is it worthy? Is it do you like it? Do you want to play it? And so we self-critique ourselves a lot, and we take the songs and we go to the rehearsal room and tweak them a little bit sometimes, and make little changes sometimes, and kind of get it all tight and together, and go from there. It's a pretty easy process. We don't sit all together and write a song. We don't go to the studio and write an album like they used to do in the 70s with the Rolling Stones. Book a studio for a month or 3 months and don't even have an album yet. Just go there and write it there. Nah, no, we put the stuff together at home a bit, and we go there and then we dial it in a bit, so everybody kind of learn what it's doing, make little changes if necessary. People might make suggestions on stuff, and we all write. So, and everybody's open to say anything they want on the song. Maybe it should do this or that, or right. So, and then then once we get the basic skeleton of it down, the bones of it down, then we start fine tuning it. What should how should the guitar parts go on it? Where should the solos be? Where are vocals going to go? That type of stuff. But it's an easy process because we kind of do the most of it at home, get together, and then we fine tune it.
Yeah, that's cool. I reckon the new album, like all your newer stuff is great as well, but the newer album seems a bit more, I don't know, like maybe a production thing. It's a bit more old school, maybe the drums, something. It's really great. I love it. Is there some kind of, what's the production process like? Like, are you guys going, oh, we want this sound, or is somebody else kind of taking care of that?
Well, we've been recording with Adam Munoz for a long time now, our engineer, and he helps with production and stuff too. So he has a certain process that he does. And if you listen to all the previous albums, they have a similar type production to them. And on this album in particular, we recorded at a different studio. We were doing Fantasy Studios for years and they shut down. So we moved to a new studio, but still with Adam. But you're going to get a different sound right away when you do that. So, I mean, they've got all the great equipment. They got the great board and all the outboard equipment, and they got everything there. But it's going to be different. It's going to be different. Anything you hear at certain studios, they're going to have a certain sound, So that was a main difference, I think, was moving to a different studio to get that sound in, and there's a few other factors I won't go into in the recording process, but it's probably mainly just different studio, I would say.
Well, it's a good sound. It's a good sound, So yeah. How's your gear setup changed over the years? Like what guitar and amps were you using back at the start compared to what you've got going now?
Oh, well, back in the start we didn't have a whole lot of stuff, so
Yeah.
It was, whatever you could get, like on Severed Survival. No, I recorded through a PV bass amp with a Boss distortion pedal,
Mm.
and it was just a little combo amp. That's what I had on that. And that was my tone on that. And then I moved up to a Randall head, and and an Ibanez distorted guitar was used on that. Um, Danny had used some different stuff. Always his Gibson Victory guitar, but he's had a couple different amp heads and cabinets. So in the early days, we didn't have any money and didn't have shit. Just bought what we could get and work with what we could get. So it wasn't really, very much, and it varied a bit. It was whatever we could get our hands on that, that sounded, decent or raw or fucking heavy. Later on, now it's, a little bit different, so we have, Danny plays through an Ampeg, head and cabinet. I play through Marshall, and, so we have a setup that we've had consistently for a while now, but it's, it's changed, in the early days to now, but it's, as long as you can still get a raw sick sound out of it, whatever. So the shit we used in the early days still sounded sick. I remember going to a Sadist rehearsal in Antioch, back in, it's probably 1985 or 86, and Rob Moore was, he was playing through an amp head and just a speaker up against a wall. It didn't even have a cabinet around it or anything,
Yeah,
just
wow.
a speaker leaned against a wall, and it sounded killer, and just in a little rehearsal room. But so you can still get killer sounds with, not the sick equipment, but we've upgraded a bit,
Yeah.
so early days, always just basic Boss distortion pedals, we still use, I use a tube screamer right now in front of my Marshall amp. Danny uses his Ampeg, and this is just our rehearsal, really, because when we go play shows, we don't bring anything with us. We don't travel with stuff, just guitars. We usually have a Marshall and Mesa Boogie when we go play somewhere out, but a Gibson and ESP guitars mainly is what we're using right now for that.
Oh, cool. Nice. So the Autopsy lineup, other than the bass player, has been pretty consistent. What's your secret? Like, so many bands, change labels heaps of times, change members. You guys seem to have it all together. Like, what's the secret?
Well, it's, me, Chris, and Danny go, way back to 1988. Well, me and Chris back to 86, 87, around there, I guess. And, and Danny, 1988. So we've always been really tight. Danny Corrales used to play in a band with my older brother, when I was a little kid, and they used to do like UFO songs and Ozzy and, Sabbath and different stuff. And so I knew who Danny was as a kid. I was like, oh yeah, this is like a great guitar player. And another friend of mine introduced us, even though I was a little kid, and he used to come to my house once I became like a teenager, I guess, not even an adult. A friend of mine introduced us, and we just put out the 87 demo. And my buddy, Don Chandler, he kept telling Danny, yeah, you need to join Autopsy, and he kept telling me that you need to get Danny. I'm like, I know who Danny is. So I was a little kid when he was a badass already. So I'd like to have Danny in the band. So we hooked up one day and we talked. We went to, I brought him to practice, and Chris didn't know who he was yet then. And Danny, being as good as he is and being a badass, he learned. We had the first demo out. We had maybe 2 more songs at that point. And Danny learned all the songs, and he showed up and he learned them. And what, at the very beginning, this is classic now. We joke about this to this day. Chris looks over at Danny and he's like, yeah, maybe you should turn down a little bit until you know what the songs are. And Danny's like, fool, I know what the songs are. So started playing, and 30 seconds in, Chris was like, okay, I guess he knows what the songs are. But so we've just been really tight since, back in the day. It's, it's brothers today, brothers tomorrow, forever.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So away from Autopsy for a little bit, Necrosis. You guys put out an EP 2016. How did that all Necrosis. How did that all start? How did that band kick off?
Well, Autopsy was kind of stagnant for a little bit, not doing much. And Skull X, a band, was playing in a room next to us, and had Erica was playing bass for them. She ended up playing bass with Chris and Dave Hill and Painted Doll, and we started talking about doing like a little project. And so I wrote some songs and we put it together and went and recorded it with Greg, actually, of Autopsy now at Earhammer, and put it out. And originally we were going to do some more with it, but the way things went, it wasn't, right time to do any of it after a bit. And so it kind of just got pushed to the side. But it was a fun little thing, getting everybody together, on that. I think everybody that played on it's pretty good. Charlie on drums and, Sean on, vocals, Sean from Impaled, and Ghoul on vocals, and Christian, from Grave Hill on guitar. I think they're all great musicians, and it was fun doing it. And I've liked to have done a little bit more, with it, but just the timing wasn't right. So it kind of got kicked to the side, but it was fun doing what we did and getting that EP out there. So you heard that?
Yeah, I've checked it out when I was, looking it up. So do you think you'll ever, if the timing is right, you'll ever go back to that?
I doubt it. Yeah. I don't think so. No, it's I don't know. I'd like to do some other stuff, but maybe not death metal, kind of like that. Cause have an Autopsy. Anything death metal, I'd like to kind of focus it to that. And not do something else that's, similar or the same type of music, So I have a lot of other stuff I'd like to do, but I think I would probably not do that. At some point I'd like to pursue some other stuff along, doing Autopsy, but I don't feel I need to be doing, a bunch of death metal bands, and writing songs for different death metal bands anymore. So I don't have the, I don't have the motivation to do that. I'd rather do some other stuff, but it was cool. It was fun. I'm glad I did it. It's great.
Cool. Talking about other styles of music, what have you been listening to lately? What kind of bands?
Well, we just seen Iron Maiden, so yeah. So, and I've seen them several times and they always fucking blow me away. They're always so fucking killer. And so I've been playing a bunch of Maiden, of course. And when I start listening to Maiden, I have to throw on Judas Priest at some point. So I'm like, okay, it's time for some Priest, Cadaver, Incubator, I got that CD in the car and I keep putting that on and listen to that. Lots of heavy doses of Frank Zappa, some Alice Cooper, lately, but that's probably about it.
Yeah, that's cool. So talking about playing other styles, what kind of thing would you be interested in, do you think?
Well, I've got some other music I've written that's acoustic guitar based, but it's stuff I have in mind to be like a rock band acoustic bass, so with electric guitars too, and stuff. So it's something I'd like to do at some point. I don't have the time to even focus on it right now, but I just gave my acoustic guitar to my 15-year-old son, a few months ago, who's just starting to play guitar. So I didn't have an acoustic guitar right now here to even play any of this, but he's got a desire to do it and wants to play it. So I was like, I got to hook him up with this. So, but yeah, I've got some stuff that's kind of acoustic, related rock, but I'd like to do some of that stuff, Yeah.
Nice one. That's great. So Autopsy, I looked up shows you got coming up. You guys got a Chicago show coming up pretty soon. Are there plans for more tour dates around the place?
Well, we don't tour. We just play shows, festivals and stuff, but we've got one in Seattle next year booked, and we've got Stonehenge in the Netherlands booked for next year so far. We're in talks with some other ones. I don't know what's going to happen just yet. I'm hoping to get as many as we can, going. I like to get out there and do some of these new songs. So it's just working on the guys and seeing what we can, agree on to go do. So, but the 2 so far, hopefully, many more, to go with it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And, what's next? Like, for Autopsy, do you think there's an EP in the future? Or will be another full length? Like, do you guys have any kind of plans?
There's no EP in the future.
Okay.
Definitely not. So we had our share of doing EPs for a while. Yeah. So, but there is a new full length in the future. So, awesome. So we plan on recording a new full length by May of next year, hopefully. So
beautiful. Yeah.
Yep.
Good. And
so
That's good. That's good to hear, man. Yeah.
Keep hammering at it.
Yeah, good, awesome.
Yep.
Look, Eric, thanks so much for your time. It was awesome to talk, and it's awesome to Autopsy's back. You know, it's really great. And yeah, hopefully you make your way to Western Australia at some point. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so. Thank you for your support, brother. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one, eh?
All right, man.
Cheers.
Yep, you too. Cheers.
Thanks, man. See ya.